Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. Hope everybody's well. RJ is currently napping. Well, now he's up. He can't decide. But anyway, I wanted to briefly address this series of tweets here, which is trying to literally blame real world injuries in the sport of football, right? In particular, brain injuries, CTE, stuff like that, on the Madden, right? The NFL Madden video game series, in the light of coach, commentator John Madden having passed away suddenly. I heard about it last night. He was 85 years old. RIP to John Madden, and my heart goes out to his family. So we have this hot take thread from a person called Empty Wheel, I'm assuming female given the picture. Abundant tweets about civil liberties and national security. You're like a human Westlaw, she, her, legendary potty mouth. Well, let's go through this and then I'm going to give my opinion on it because I believe that she's totally off base and she's trying to blame video games for something they literally cannot do. So, let's go through it and I'll give my take on her hot take. Right, so she starts here saying, everyone eulogizing Madden. How many concussions could we have prevented had he not turned brain injuries into a video game? Madden is not solely responsible for the fact that the NFL has, in the face of real evidence of lasting unaccounted injuries, only accelerated that process. But he is but he is one thing that glamorized that. For those asking about my football expertise, I was the star monster back on my powder puff team. I played 6 years of rugby, 2 at club level, 1 on an elite team. Blame my bad posts on the fact that I played through concussions at least once. A former teammate died on the field. Now we have on the bottom, right, somebody sent her a salty tweet, right? I'm not going to read it. I think that tweet sent to her is kind of stupid. But she says, a response to a comment about how video games minimizes the physical risk of sports. Then she says, by the way, actually loving the responses to the original tweet. How dare you claim video games led to tolerance for brain injuries? Bring it. Bring it. Makes writing about it later child's play. Please leave your names and your most misogynist takes, as well as you believe. I am assuming she means believe. I never played a contact sport. Well, I did tweet at her, so I guess this misogynist um, will now be on her list, right? But here's the thing. Here's why I do not like her hot take. She is trying to blame, as we see here. Where is it? Let me see here. Oh, this one right here. How dare you claim video games led to the tolerance of brain injuries? Indeed, how dare you claim that, ma'am? How dare you claim that? You are claiming that video games led for tolerance of brain injuries. They cannot lead to tolerance of brain injuries because it cannot create brain injuries. Playing video games is not a terribly physical endeavor for most individuals. You have certain games like, say, DDR, where you have to, dance around and all that, right? But the vast majority of gamers, the vast majority of players are pretty much doing what I'm doing right now, right? You see it all the time on various streams when people stream games. You sit at your computer or whatever game system you have with a controller in hand, and you do this. You do this until you beat the game or until you get tired or you get frustrated or whatever it is. Gaming in general, video gaming in general, is not terribly physical. So yes, you're claiming that something that is not physical, right, led to tolerance of real world injuries, which is untrue. And you tweet this at gamers. You mention the NFL in your tweet, but nothing here shows that you actually tweeted at them. So you mention them, but you don't want to actually tweet at them and call them out. Now look, I don't have the physical background that she does per se, but I did grow up. I don't necessarily look it now, I know, but 20 years ago when I was a teenager, I was a fairly active kid. I played sports. I was never on any professional leagues or anything like that, but I grew up playing basketball when I was was in high school. They had fencing class. I took that most of the years I was in high school. I played basketball. I ran around with my friends. Got into a few fights, right? So I had a fairly physical upbringing. It wasn't all video games. A lot of video games, but not all, right? I had a fairly physical um, upbringing. I had a lot of physical sport in play, right? And I have watched over the years many sports. As anybody who's been on my channel for all of 5 minutes knows, I am a lifelong, unabashed pro wrestling fan. I have watched basketball off and on over the years. I watched football growing up. I have followed martial arts, and I casually follow boxing. I casually follow MMA. I've watched shows like Ninja Warrior or American Ninja Warrior, various types of shows like that. So I've always sort of been immersed in physical stuff, right? In competitive physical sport and play, whether I was doing it myself or whether I was watching it. And the thing is that video games cannot teach you complex physical skills. They cannot, right, instill in you a desire for violence, right? I have played plenty of Mortal Kombat. I have played plenty of fighting games. It doesn't mean that I'm a trained martial artist. I'm not. I can't even throw a proper sidekick, right? I can maybe throw a punch or two, but that's about it. I have absolutely like my lower body, nothing. I can't throw kicks for anything. But again, I am not a trained martial artist, and generally speaking, I don't have a desire to hurt people. I'm not especially in my age. Getting into a fight these days is legal issues. I don't have the time or money for that. I'm not trying to get into a fight anymore. I'm not trying to get into a fight at all. I don't want to hurt people. If I'm hurting somebody, it's because that person's trying to hurt me, and I have no other recourse but to defend myself, right? But I don't have this burning desire to go out and harm people, right? And I want to be clear, because what she doesn't talk about here, at least in no major way, is the fact that first of all, if you live a physical lifestyle, whether you play, whether you do it professionally, whether you don't, whether you're playing a physical sport like football or basketball or combat sports, or whether you're doing something like golf, right? Golfers get injuries, right? Tennis players get injuries. Those are nowhere near as violent or physical as combat sports or football or anything like that. Or whether you do stuff like bodybuilding, right? Or you do stuff like CrossFit, Tough Mudder, stuff like that. If you are doing this, especially if you are doing this for like a competition, right? Uh, and you're competing, right? And you're competing often, you are going to get hurt. That is the nature of the beast. To live a physical lifestyle, especially one where you're in regular training, constant training, probably overtraining to be honest with you, um, and you're constantly competing and you're always getting ready for the next competition, the next race, the next this, the next that, you are going to get hurt. You're going to suffer at least one major serious injury. That is not the fault of the video game, right? The closest thing is that maybe you developed wrist issues, right? Some people develop wrist issues because of playing or because of using a mouse, right? Carpal tunnel, stuff like that. That's about it, right? If you live a physical lifestyle, if you play a physically demanding sport and you play it with any sort of regular consistency, you're going to get hurt. That's the truth of it. And to blame a video game for real world injuries is insulting to the people who suffer those real world injuries, right? If you get CTE, right, a video game can't fix that. A video game can't cause it, a video game can't fix it. If you end up, we'll say, like tearing your ACL, right? Tearing your ACL or your MCL, in your legs, right? Or your Achilles, right? Those are common basketball injuries. That didn't come from a video game. That didn't cause the game didn't cause the injury. The playing caused the injury. And I want to be clear. I think that sports at all levels, of all types, definitely need to do more about injury prevention, need to do more about um, striking a balance about how far to push players, right? Because it can be very difficult when you're in the moment, especially if it's a big thing like the championship game. You know, do you push through the pain, right, or do you sit it out, right? Because your team needs you. You want to win, right? The coach wants to win, right? Those type of calls can be very difficult to make. And I actually am sympathetic to her if she's telling the truth about the fact that she played through concussions. That never should have happened, right? And I can tell you now in pro wrestling, now these days, right, there is a concussion protocol, and a wrestler will not be allowed to play again until not play, wrestle again until they've gone through the whole protocol. In fact, there was maybe about 2 years ago a wrestler by the name of Kairi Sane, a very slight Japanese woman, um, took a power bomb, right, just get thrown to the ground the wrong way, or was done wrong, right? She ended up with a concussion, and she was kept off TV. She wasn't allowed to work until she went through the protocol and it was found that she was going to be okay, right? The fans were absolutely livid. Fans were absolutely livid about the injury she suffered and about the way it happened, right? Because the move was not done properly, right? There's a certain way it has to be done. There's a certain way the person taking the power bomb has to land, and that didn't happen, right? Internet wrestling fans, right? The internet wrestling community that the pro that the pro wrestling industry both loves and hates, depending on what they're saying, was livid with how that spot went wrong, with how she never should have gotten hurt in the first place. So how dare you try to say that injury, right? That injury, serious injury, is somehow glamorized because of, in this case, she's arguing a football series, right? A football franchise. But the WWE has plenty of wrestling games, as do other companies, right? And there are other sports that have various video game titles throughout their history. So this can really be applied to any sport that has a video game somewhere in its history. So how dare you try to claim that fans of the real sport, or fans of the video game, right, are somehow glamorizing the very real injuries. No sane person glamorizes injuries. Acknowledging injuries, or in the case of video games, featuring injuries in the game as something you have to manage or deal with because it's a part of the real life sport, is not the same as glamorizing it. This is like saying that Mortal Kombat glamorizes violence because it allows you to kill your opponent at the end. No, it doesn't. It's not saying that murder is a good thing. Same way that injuries, right? It's not saying, oh, getting hurt is the most awesome thing you can do. Go do it, kids. No, it's not saying that. You are making a foolish straw man argument that does not actually address the real issues with player management, injury prevention, and numerous things in all different types of sports. Again, these definitely need to be addressed, but lashing out at the Madden video game franchise, or in a broader sense, lashing out at any sports title, it does nothing. It's a distraction. It's a distraction. This does not bring any attention to the actual issues. This is the video games cause violence argument, but crafted for sports now. You are now trying to blame video games for sports injuries. for mental sports injuries like CTE, which again, you cannot get CTE by playing a video game. You get CTE by being tackled, by being dragged by your head, by getting hit in the head, right? And that's how you get it, through the physical contact with your head, right? And another thing is that there's this odd dichotomy when it comes to what people want to blame video games for, right? When they want to blame video games for things like, lack of social development for kids or childhood obesity or things of that nature, they'll argue that, the problem is that video games are sedentary, right? And that kids don't go outside enough. They don't interact in the real world, right? The whole go touch grass type of argument, right? So when they want to argue about children's physical health in that sense, right, then video games are bad because you stay in your room and you sit in a chair for hours and you play games. Keep in mind, nobody complains about this when it comes to watching TV, watching sports or other types of TV shows, or working a desk job. But apparently, video games is where we draw the line, and that's the problem, right? Or when they want to argue against things like this, right, injuries or school shootings or anything violent, right, that has cost children their lives or has harmed them, then it's the video games cause violence because they display violence. And now she's going with the video games glamorize or somehow cause sports injuries because they display injuries, right? Now they want to argue when it comes to this that video games can turn you into a mindless killer because you play them. That was actually literally one of the arguments made by the prosecuting attorneys in the Rittenhouse trial, right? And on top of that, video games, which again, do not demand too much physical exertion beyond doing this in most instances, or typing or whatnot, right? Somehow video games can teach you complex physical skills just by you viewing it. Apparently, movies can't do this, cartoons can't do this, comics can't do this, but apparently, video games, because you hold a controller or you type, can somehow teach you complex physical skills like throwing a football or shooting a basketball or holding a gun or other types of things, right? How to move and respond and react, in the moment, in high stress situations, right? Video games can now teach you all this. Not a lifetime of physical training, not actually going to the shooting range or going to the football field or going to basketball practice and literally doing this all of your life, right? Not that. It's not actually physically doing it and training to repetition over and over and over and over and over and over and over again that teaches you this. No. Now it's simply you did it in a video game. Well, if that was the case, I'd be an expert marksman because of all the times I've played GTA and Metal Gear Solid. If that was the case, I would be a master martial artist because of all the times I have watched boxing or watched MMA or played fighting games. Right? I would know Muay Thai, Karate, Judo, Capoeira, and various other styles if that were indeed true. Just one problem. It's not true. You can't learn these things without actually doing them. You cannot learn how to do a windmill kick in capoeira, right, or a spinning wheel kick in various martial arts without actually practicing that martial art, right? People who are physically active athletes or well trained, they will tell you, right? Especially if you go with like high level people, like Olympic athletes, right? They will talk about how their entire life is structured around how they train, right? They wake up, they train. They go eat, they train. They go to sleep, they train. Everything is about training. Right? Kobe Bryant used to talk about how he was the first guy in the gym and the last man out the gym, right? Because he was always training. He was always practicing because he wanted to be great. May he rest in peace. He for whatever his flaws, and there were many, he achieved that greatness in his sport several times over because the man practiced and he practiced and he practiced and he practiced. He didn't sit there twiddling his thumbs playing a video game. In fact, if you are if you are trying to get into a physical sport and you spend too much time playing video games, that's one of the things that they will like chide you on. It's like, stop playing this game. You're not learning anything from it. Come to practice and train. Right? So, in closing, because this is already 20 minutes and I've pretty much said everything I need to say, but just to recap, video games don't cause violence. Video games don't cause sports injuries. Video games typically don't glamorize injuries or violence. They can't teach you complex physical skills that take a lifetime to master. All she's doing is providing a distraction. It is the video games cause violence argument, but now applied to sports. All because she wants to take a dunk on a dead man who can no longer defend himself. This is classless, this is trashy, this is disgusting. It it's one of those things where it's like a person talks a lot, but they say nothing. It's basically what this tweet thread is. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all the next one. Have a good day and night wherever you are. Bye.